Elizabeth Alfano. You are in my home. We are doing Facebook Live with the ever fabulous Alexandra Billings, whom I'm going to call Alex.
Yeah.
And we've got some great food here today, and we're going to get into it, people. Not just the food, but we're going to talk about like how, what, why, where, and when. I think we all know fabulous Alexandra, all my Chicago peeps. We know her from Chicago theater. So Steppenwolf and the Court Theater and Chicago Shakes and Chopin Theater and About Face.
Look how much stuff you know.
Yeah. But of course, those of you who aren't from Chicago, we know her from Transparent. We also know her as the first transgender to play a transgender role.
I am actually the second transgender person. I know.
Website,
I know.
Okay, no.
It's a mistake. And what happened was, it's true. And what happened was, we thought that I was the first. So we had this big thing of, she's the first, she's the first.
Yeah, sure.
And then one day, the first transgender woman to ever play a transgender person on television called and said,
"Don't you take my spot."
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. And we all went, and now I don't remember who it was. I'm a terrible human being. But she was it was a science fiction show.
Oh, huh.
And which was a long, long time ago, which is why I don't remember the name of it. No.
Okay,
so
well,
I'm the second.
Well, which we're going to get into as to why this would be important. But even more than that, what we're really going to get into is I'm going to ask some very basic questions. So a lot of you out there, feel free to hit me up on Facebook Live, hit us up on Facebook and say like, that's a stupid question. Or why aren't you asking this question? Or there are a gazillion questions out there, but I have some of the very basic ones. And I'm just curious and I want to know. So hopefully you will share with me in this journey about finding out really what transgender is, and what that means, beyond the definition, what that really means, and why that is something we all want to know about. Okay, so that's Alexandra's world, and she's going to take me into that. But I'm taking Alexandra into my world just a little bit, and that is the world of being vegan. So today, we're eating vegan things.
I did not know that. Really?
Yes, we are. And I've seen on your website that you eat medium rare hamburgers.
I do.
Which we won't comment on that today.
Okay.
We'll just say that today's lunch is vegan. And usually, as you guys know, I cook myself because I'm Sicilian and that's important to me. But I was on a very late flight that was delayed a gazillion hours. I got back in the middle of the night from Chicago. So today, instead, I went to Yellow Fever. And what we're eating it's called the California Bowl. And it's sauteed in spices, tofu with some pickled mushrooms and avocado and carrots and salad in a nice spicy sauce, and hopefully it works for you.
I'm going to say something to you.
Yes.
I have never in my life had tofu. So don't tell me what tofu is or where it exists on the plate because I won't eat it. But now I'll just eat it. I've never in my life had it. Never.
Why?
I've never had tofu because it scares me.
Tofu scares you?
It frightens me. I don't...
What is it the consistency that frightens you?
I don't know. It just feels weird. It feels
concept?
like I feel like I'm eating shoes. I don't know.
Oh, no. You will see in my lunch today. You will not be having shoes.
I'm not going to be having shoes?
No, you are not having shoes. Well, you're going to see.
Okay.
You're going to see. So I'm going to let you discover at your own pace.
I'm just going to eat it.
But people, we eat here. So we're going to chomp and all the rest. And we're getting into it.
Yeah. I'm going to
So while she is dressing her bowl/salad, I'm going to ask Alex, when did you know that you were meant to be a girl? And I'm already screwing it up. I can see that I'm already asking the wrong questions in the wrong way.
The first question, you're like, I said it wrong.
Oh, no.
It's not, everything's fine.
Okay.
Everything's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, my fuse is pretty long, so it takes a lot to like upset and insult me.
Okay.
I'm actually more nervous about the eating of the tofu than I am about anything.
As we all open our worlds today.
Yes,
people.
This is a whole thing for me. Here's what I'm going to say. If I asked you, first of all, I don't consider myself a girl. I consider myself transgender, a transgender female. You and I are different kinds of females.
Okay.
I am a transgender female. You are a cisgender female.
Yes.
Right?
And we know what that word means, right? Cisgender, I'm just basics here. Cisgender meaning my gender and my genitalia match. Is that right? Oh, Jesus.
Kind of.
Thanks.
Cis means everything's going great.
Okay.
Cis means that cis is a Greek word, loosely translated meaning same. So cisgender means you are the same gender that you were when you were born. You did not transition to another gender.
Okay, so that's easy. We got that.
Yeah.
So cis is same.
Cis is same.
Same.
Right.
Okay. And so you identify with, see yourself as?
A transgender female, that I have always transcended the gender I was assigned at birth, that has always been true.
Okay.
That it's not a choice, that it's a birthright, it's historic, it's genetic.
Yes, and so that's a question we're going to get into for sure, because I think that's a common misconception, is that this isn't a choice, it's
Right.
what you are, it's who you are. It's,
Correct.
Okay, but then with that in mind, again, I'm so sorry for the basic clarifications.
No, don't be.
What exactly were you meant to be? Transgender?
Mm-hmm. I believe that.
Okay, so you don't believe that you were meant to be a girl and it didn't happen, therefore you've transcended.
No, I do not believe that.
Okay, you believe that you were meant to be someone who started as one sex and moved to a different sex.
I believe I was born transgender. I believe that I was born with these two, with a fluid sense of what gender is, with a fluid sense of male and female.
I love that.
All of us are on a scale.
A spectrum. I totally
Exactly.
agree with you. I totally agree.
There's no 1 and there's no 10. But only you know which number you fall into.
Yes.
And I really feel I am between a 4 and a 7, that I slide between these two things.
How fun for you.
I like
I mean,
it.
your world is so big because it doesn't have to be one, you know,
It's not confined.
You can pick and choose.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But I loved your question, because it's a very common question about when did you know? So I wanted to clarify that it is historic and it is genetic. And also I wanted to say, when people ask me that question, I always say, ask yourself the same question. If you ask yourself, when did I know I was male or female? It's usually not a question. You just always knew.
Yes, you always knew.
Right?
Yes.
It's something you always sort of knew. No, you didn't have, maybe had questions about your sexuality.
I was just going to say,
Right. Who do I find attractive?
Right.
Who do I want to ask me to the prom?
Yes, yes.
Who do I want to fall in love with? Those are questions.
Draws
you
my
ask.
attention. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But very rarely did you ask yourself, well, gee, am I a boy or am I a girl? So the same was true for me. I always knew that I fit in the middle. I knew I wasn't my mother, and I knew I wasn't my father. You know, little boys usually go, oh, daddy. And little girls usually go, oh, mommy. That's usually what happens. And I liked both. I sort of went, I like that, but I don't like those things. And I like that, but I don't like those things.
So my next question for you with that in mind is, so you were able to process this very early on?
Well,
Or did it take a long time to really...
it took a long time to process.
Okay.
I just knew it.
And was it hard?
Really hard.
It was really hard.
I went through years of shame and
Yes.
about it, but you know, I never. This is really good, by the
Oh,
way.
good. Oh, no shoes here.
This is really
Okay.
good, by the way. I just want to make sure I'm not eating, tree bark, but it's very good.
Not today, people.
It's really, really good. I didn't really know that I was doing something wrong until people told me.
Pointed it out, right?
You know.
Yes.
I remember the first time I was dressing in my mother's clothes, in her magical closet. She came and she caught me, and she said very specifically, "Don't ever do that outside."
Interesting.
So that was the first voice that I remember hearing. Like, it's okay, you can do it in here.
So she's giving you boundaries and permission at the same time. So
Weird.
she must have known as well that you needed this outlet, or this was you.
think.
And
I think that's
But-
right.
that's so hard, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today, which is why I think this is a conversation for all of us, is that you may or may not be transgender, or you may have all these questions answered, and whatever your gig is, really no one cares. It's your gig. I don't think anybody cares about my gig. I think quite shortly we're no longer going to care about Alexandra's gig. I
Boy,
I
that'd
think
be
we're
great.
Yeah, I think we're all going to get to that point where it really just doesn't really matter. But I think something that we all can identify with is that it's very painful to be inauthentic about who you are. And maybe you've been at a job and you had to go with what your boss said because that's what your boss said, and then you had to live with that. And that's hard when you have to go against your core self for any kind of prolonged period of time. And that's really the conversation that I think is interesting here, is how can we all preserve our authentic selves? And
I love what you just
said. That's for you,
said.
but also for everybody
Yeah,
else.
I think it's important because I think that we can disassociate other people's experiences simply because of the facts of their life.
Right. I agree with
They've
that.
gone through these things, so that has nothing to do with me. And I really believe that all of us were born with a divine sense of self. Something that's very pure and something that comes from something that isn't worldly and that isn't us.
And that's very particular,
Very.
special,
Yeah.
very only one of a kind
I think
piece of
that's right.
sand kind of thing.
And I think we cannot, it is irresponsible for us to ignore our true self. That it's not just a gift, it is a responsibility.
I agree with that. And then you're throwing away the gift that really only you have.
That's right.
So it's a way of honoring all of us. When we let everyone else do their own thing, you're giving permission to yourself to do your own thing, as only you can. And therein is
I think
the joy.
that's right. And then also, we're more of service to each other.
Right.
We're kinder to each other.
Yes.
We're more compassionate. I mean, look at the world. Look at this human that's running the country. We have a human being, bless his heart. We have a human being who is so misguided in his own self-hatred and self-loathing that he cannot see the light for the trees. So he's constantly lost.
Yes.
He's in terrible need of guidance and help. And he is a shining example of how not to behave.
Yes, day in and day out.
Constantly.
Yes, yes.
And so I think, the great gift of him, and I have to say this, I've said this a lot, the great gift of him is that he constantly teaches us how precious freedom really is.
That's a great, because I rarely say, oh, I'm so blessed to have him as my president. That
I think,
never really comes out of my mouth. But that's an interesting perspective.
Well, it's true, because if we don't see, and we see our own selves, our own narcissistic behavior, our own jealousies and envies and attachment to worldly
and how that makes
possessions.
us react.
Yes,
Yeah.
we see that reflected in him. And I think that the great thing is that we can look at him and say, oh, that's not how I want to be.
No,
I don't want to be like that guy.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does.
I hope not.
I think he's just not well. I think he's
I would
mentally
agree with
not
you.
well.
I think you're right. He's also spiritually not well.
Yes,
because
no,
we're talking about
the whole.
our authentic selves. I don't think that he understands what that means.
I agree. And therein is a very painful life. And so we perhaps can't help him with that. But we're here to sort of open that dialogue for the rest of us. So let me ask you a couple other basic questions, and maybe other people have asked you this already. So it's one thing to feel, okay, I'm transgender. Maybe it's not. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what you say. It's another thing to say, I'm moving forward with an operation.
You're talking about surgery.
Yes. So that's got to be an enormous leap, because we just said there's a scale of sexuality and a scale of gender roles. So what made you feel that I'm going to take it to the other side?
Well, that's an interesting question. And it's often asked of our community, especially about surgical procedures, because they are permanent, they're irreversible. I guess I would say that for me, any body enhancement I've had done is really no different than anyone saying, my leg is broken, I need to fix it in order for me to walk.
Okay, so it is so core to who you are that there was this sense of broken.
It's about body image, I think. It's about ego.
Yes.
It certainly is about ego.
And where you feel solid.
Right.
And good, yeah.
I mean, but then we're back to Botox, we're back to nose jobs, we're back to, people having things done just because they want to present to the world in a certain way.
I have done so many a diet.
See?
The grapefruit diet, the egg diet.
Yeah.
I only ate, I was 12, but yeah, my poor mom. Okay, I'm sorry.
You ate eggs when you were 12?
Well, and that's all I ate.
That's not good.
I did. Rocky was coming out at the time. I'm kind of dating myself. And
Wow.
he had those eggs and a thing. And my poor mom, she was like trying to sneak me things in my lunch bag. Yeah,
we don't
I know.
want to do that.
No, we don't want to. No, and I know that now. I tortured myself in so many ways.
Well, this is interesting because we can suffer, especially the trans community, can suffer from body dysphoria, where we have too much surgery, our lips or... But you see
I don't
that
think
in,
it's just the transgender
I was going to
world.
say, you see that in Hollywood all the time. So, I think, you know, the question about surgery is we draw a big circle around that. But I think the spotlight needs to be shown on not necessarily what we're doing, but how we're doing it. Are we being kind to ourselves? Are we setting an example for the youth? Just on Sunday, there was another murder of a trans person.
This Sunday?
This Sunday in Georgia. She was shot in the head.
Oh, I saw this. Yes.
And she was 17 years old, African American. And when they began to talk about her on the news, they misgendered her and called her him and he. So this is the problem.
But how could they? Because she had already transgendered physically. So
Transitioned.
Yes. I'm sorry.
It's okay, but
but
because I believe it was purposeful.
Oh, intentional.
Absolutely, no question. Absolutely, this is how she was born. So this is how we're going to.
I see.
And so that's where the light really needs to be shown. It's less about what we're doing and more about how we're doing it. So how do we transition? Look at transition, if you can, in your own life, from being single to being married, from being childless to having children, from going to high school to college. We all transition.
From being brunette to going gray. And that was a hard transition, people.
See, that's tough.
Right.
This is what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm telling you, I suffered.
See?
I don't want to make light. Listen, now I'm all nervous. I don't want to make light.
I like it. No, thank God.
But it was hard on me. You guys
See?
know.
You know what it's like. We have to look at, especially in our lives as transgender people, what we have to do, in my opinion, in order for us, because I'm not about assimilation. I don't want us to be the same. I like our individuality. But in order for us to educate each other, we've got to keep the door open to the similarities between us.
Yes, and there are so many.
Yeah.
And this is why I think the conversation is important, because it transcends transgender issues. It's race issues, it's nationality issues, it's people have so much in common, and when they find that common ground, they're so much happier and they're so much more enlightened, and everything just goes better. And that's what we want, right? Let's get rid of grief and let's open ourselves to something better.
Well, and I think also, I would agree with you, and I think also that, you know, what we were talking about the President of the United States, I think that...
Him again.
In order for us, I know, in order for us to behave better towards each other, the dialogue that we have with each other needs to be filled with commonality. Instead of, I live way over here and you live way over there, and we don't have anything in common. We couldn't possibly understand each other.
And you would really expect that from somebody whose job it is to do that.
Right.
It's his job to bring people together, because there's one nation here.
So it's exactly what you're doing here, bringing me into your home and
making me eat vegan.
And making me eat vegan. And having conversations. This is what needs to happen.
Yes.
This is where we discover what is true for both of us.
That's right. It all comes together over food. I do believe that.
How many transgender people do you know?
Now, hold on, people. Hold on. I know... I'm going to use my vocabulary. I know one binary person. Sing.
Nice. Binary.
I mean, that's a
nice
new
work.
one for me.
You're doing really well.
Binary means, now I'm going to butcher it, show you how I only think I know what I'm talking about.
No, I like it.
Binary means they don't really identify with either sex. So, and then I know so many gay and lesbian people. And I, from Chicago, live right in the city, so I feel that I am exposed to encounter on the street, but I don't know them personally, transgender people. And recently I was at a party. Do you know Art Smith? Chef
Yes.
Art Smith. Of course you know Chef
Yes.
Art Smith. Okay, so I was at a party with him, and there were a lot of cross-dressing, so I don't know if the operations were had or not, but they were.
Well, transgenderism, again, doesn't directly relate to surgical procedures.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
You can be transgender without actually having changed things.
Absolutely. The transgender, the word now is really a large umbrella.
Good.
That sort of encompasses, sometimes gender fluid call themselves transgender. People, gender fluid people, or people who live on the binary, or people who define themselves as gender queer. They will also put themselves under the transgender umbrella. So people who...
What's gender queer?
Gender queer is another term for fluidity.
Okay.
Where you, it's not a costume, but sometimes you experience life through a male perspective, and sometimes you experience life through a female perspective, and sometimes you experience yourself through both of these perspectives.
So what I come to realize with all of this is that the world is such a colorful place. And so, I mean, every shade of blue out there, every shade of pink out there is in every one of us. So there are just so many shades of what's possible. Mm-hmm. Here, I thought I was so normal or average or typical. And in fact, I'm not really sure I am. I think it's quite the opposite, because everyone is a shade of some form of some like or dislike,
right.
or
yeah.
I guess it's not a choice. It is who they are. So every gender and sexuality, there's so many shades out there, so many ice cream flavors, that I am just not, I sort of thought the world was strawberry, vanilla, chocolate. And since there are 18 gazillion thousand flavors, I am just part of the Seurat kind of painting with all the dots.
That's
anyway,
right. That's right.
I'm just babbling no end. Okay, wait. I have more questions for you, because you're willing to tell me that.
Okay.
So I just saw Alexandra in a great play in Los Angeles, and I think it's going to go around the country. I know you're maybe still working on that, but it's called She and Me. Mm-hmm. She/HE and Me. So talking about how you were Scott, which is the name you were given at birth, and making that transition with your parents and working it through your life and your mind, and just kind of coming to terms with it yourself. Give or take. And I highly recommend it when it comes to your town. Go see it. Do you have any plans for other cities? Plug it if you can.
That makes me tired.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just thinking about it.
Okay, well,
it makes me want to put my
that.
feet up.
Okay.
and swim in a pool.
Okay, so it won't be coming soon.
Won't be coming soon.
It's coming.
I'm sure we'll tour it. I'm sure that will happen. I'm pooped.
So in this play, you made reference to, but you didn't dig deep, but you made reference to, first of all, a bit of this self-loathing that happens, because you probably wanted your life to be easy. You didn't set out to be a trendsetter. So there's that, but also that you wrestle with both identities. You almost speak to Scott from a female perspective, and Scott speaks to you. I mean, it's, you've got these voices in your head, and you're trying to find harmony and peace. And there's one point where you said you had transitioned. Help me, God. You had transitioned, and there was an inkling of, do I have regret? Not full-on regret, but there was. And I wondered at the time when I saw the play if you were experiencing the sense of loss. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very much. That's
so you had said
unbelievably perceptive of you.
Goodbye to yourself.
Unbelievably perceptive.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. There is a sense. It's really amazing what you just said. There is a sense of loss that I felt, and probably still feel, and strangely, a sense of marriage, a sense of coming together. Very much so. But that loss, I think, it can be equated with learned behavior, because I was taught my whole life, you have to behave like this, don't behave like that.
Yes.
So that became the norm for me,
Yes.
is hiding and secrets and shame and don't be that way and pretend to be this. It goes back to being authentic and true to who you are and our divine self. It never made any sense to me. And then once I let that go, that, if you will, male sense of who I was, there was a sense of, oh my God, I missed that.
Sure. It's what you know.
Yeah.
You've been around your whole life.
It's really interesting.
So what about that? Yes, right. Did the doctors talk to you about this at all? Because I would imagine this is common for everybody, that they would feel this sense of loss. So is there that reconciling with that?
Yeah, and when I transitioned, it was 1980. So we didn't have a whole lot of
support.
No.
God, yeah.
Not
Even
really.
what I learned by research, I'm sorry to cut you off, by researching for Alexandra, I realized that you didn't even have a lot of support in the lesbian gay community. Am I getting that right?
There's a lot, especially, 30, 40 years ago.
Surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising. There was a lot of, I don't know, ownership, I think. Like, you belong to us. You're in our tribe. Where are you going? Like,
Yes.
what's happening?
Yes.
So I think there was that.
Oh, I see.
And misunderstanding. You know, whether you're LGBT or not, we're still men and women and people of transgender experience, and so we have a very specific idea of gender. So it's still confusing.
It's still
Even
confusing.
if you're gay or you're lesbian, it's still confusing. So I think there was that too. People were just confused. It didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense to me. I still don't get it. I'll be honest with you. I still don't get it. People, if you really...
Oh, I feel better now.
Well, it's in my show because my parents both ask me why. In the show, they just sort of stand there and they go, why? And I say, I don't know. Because I don't. I really don't know.
You were just born this way.
I mean, it's the only... I got nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a large part of it is the mysteriousness of it. I just keep going back to our common experiences that you were born in this gender. It was true for you. It's always been true for you. It's never been a question. The same is true for me.
Yes, right. And yes, you are.
That's the only explanation I can think of.
Does theater help you get through this?
Oh my God, yes.
Because I think of, and I wonder if this is a common fallacy.
Oh my God, yes.
When I think of transgender folks, I think of a lot of, and I think this is a fallacy. It's a stereotype, I'm guessing, but I think of flamboyant folks.
Do you?
I do, because I always see them in theater. But then I think, what about the poor accountant who doesn't have the theater community or that skill set to put on the good face and move forward, to be vocal enough, but he or she is, at the car wash or a sports figure, or they don't have theater to help them get through.
Well, it's interesting. It's fascinating what you're talking about because statistically, when we transition, we want to disappear. We want to lie about our pasts and marry and have kids and move to
Start
Iowa.
again, like clean slate, like it didn't happen. No, that's painful too.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
No
all of the stuff that happened,
yes.
none of the stuff that happened to me.
Yes.
None of it happened to me.
Oh.
So a lot of us go underground. We live in what we call stealth. So we live a lie. So that's the painful part. The ones that we who are in the entertainment world, I think, for me, I did it because I didn't know how to do anything else. I have no skills, by the way. I have no skills.
Not true.
None.
She can sing.
And it's not really a skill, and I don't do it, But the people I think that are in the entertainment world, we're doing that for ourselves to be seen in a very large, big, open way. And that's not true of a lot of our community. So...
Well, that's why I say I think it's a misconception.
I think you're right.
Maybe just mine, but...
No, I think it's true for most of us. People think transgender people and they think RuPaul.
They do, right.
And most who's great.
Who is great. But in most TV shows or films, it's always,
Yeah.
Hey,
very
honey.
flamboyant,
Hey,
very
like,
much so.
over the top and flippant. But I think for a lot of people, of course, that's not the case. And they're just... secretary, trying to get through the day.
The problem is that the living the lie.
Yes, right.
And that's why it's important for us to have these conversations, so that not only people who do not identify transgender, but actual transgender people can see this kind of thing. The youth in Middle America can be watching online their Facebook and go, oh, well, look at her. Well, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you something that happened to me. I was about 16 years old, and I really thought that my family and the world would be much better without me.
Oh, horrible feeling.
Because I was too complicated. What I was too complicated. It didn't make any sense to anybody. So I went into my mother's medicine cabinet. I got a handful of pills. This was on a Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This will make sense in a minute. And I went into my room and I closed the door and I sat at the edge of the bed with my handful of pills. And I turned on the TV. And because it was Friday at 3 o'clock, back in 1970 something, a guy named Phil Donahue was on.
Whom I love, still to this day.
Great guy. Phil Donahue, for those of you who don't know, was Oprah before Oprah was Oprah.
He is what allowed Oprah to be Oprah, I would say.
Correct.
Even
he
paved
was
the way.
the guy.
Yeah, he was the guy. In Chicago.
In Chicago. So I'm sitting at the edge of my bed, I'm holding on to these pills, and I'm watching Phil Donahue. And Phil has on these 3 hilarious, intelligent, witty, beautiful women who I actually thought were strippers because they had, wigs and a lot of, lashes, and they were very sparkly. And I thought, these are really fabulous strippers. Look at these fabulous strippers. And he's interviewing them, and as he's interviewing them, we come to find out that these 3 women were actually born 3 men.
Oh, and they had transitioned.
They had transitioned. And I sat at the edge of the bed, and I had these pills, and I looked at the television, and I said,
it's possible.
There I am.
That's great. To see yourself, to have a beacon.
Exactly.
Beacon of light.
This is my point. Mm-hmm. You personally create a portal when you have someone like me come on to the World Wide Web, and we're able to speak about this subject, because who knows who's sitting at home on the edge of their bed with a handful of pills and is able to say, she's interviewing, look at Elizabeth is interviewing Alex, and everything's fine.
Fine, right. Over some tofu, no
Over
less.
tofu.
My God.
Which does not taste like shoes.
Yay!
Can I say that?
There's been success
today. It does not taste like shoes. It's actually really good.
Well, this is what I'm hoping for too, is that this kind of normal dialogue then can be repeated out there with a bunch of people from Ohio and Indiana and anywhere as possible.
All over the world.
All over the world, because it's not that strange.
That's right.
Really, when you come down to it, it's not that strange.
Isn't that nice?
Right? We're just having a normal
What's strange is that
conversation.
I'm eating tofu. That's strange.
Oh, I can't wait for you to tell people that you now like tofu potentially.
I do.
You potentially like tofu.
I don't know which one is the tofu, so I'm going to keep eating it, but don't tell me.
I won't tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
At the end, tell me.
Okay, so I've got more big questions. Any other big fallacies about transgender? Or sort of the flip side of that question, what's the one thing you really want people to know that they don't know? Or 2 or 3 things.
I think it really goes hand in hand with what we were talking about. That transgender people are people that I just had 3 auditions for 3 great things. Well, kind of. And all 3 of them were either prostitutes, drug addicts,
right, okay.
or drug dealers.
Right, okay, so the stereotypes of what you might think of life on the fringe. But it's not life on the fringe so much anymore.
It's not. I think that's one of the things. And I'm not saying that those 3 things are not in my past. What I'm saying is the scale is tipped in entertainment. We are represented in a very particular way.
Yes, right.
And here's the problem with that. If you do that, and you continue to see us in a very particular way, the men, and I'm talking about transgender females who date men, the men who date us fetishize us, or they disassociate us with any kind of humanity, because all they know is that we're prostitutes, drug addicts, and drug dealers. Because that's all they see.
Right, yes.
So then it's easier to kill us.
Oh, God, right. I see what you're saying. Oh, my God.
That's the danger.
And you feel that that's a prevalent danger.
I absolutely feel it's prevalent. And I feel like my job is to walk into these rooms with these Hollywood people holding this script and saying, you know what, this is a great script. It's really good. It's a wonderful story. Now your trans character, who's a drug dealer and a drug addict, we can probably make that not true.
Right.
Either just make it a cis character, or take out what they do, because remember, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. So that's how we continue to keep the dialogue open. So that's one thing I'd like to say. The world needs to change.
Does Hollywood perpetuate this? Or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, they do?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, no question. No question.
But do they do this for prostitutes as well as transgender?
I think that it goes hand in hand. I think
see.
It's part of what you were saying, that when I think of trans people, I think of very flamboyant, very over the
yes,
top lives.
So those are the roles.
So I think that Hollywood still thinks the same thing, that we are, that's who we are, like, all the time.
But it's funny because whenever I am back in Chicago, my love of my life, hometown, and I'm just walking around, whatever, Clark, Broadway, Hollywood, whatever, and I see people who are transitioning, maybe physically, literally, or not, but they're in clothes and, on high heels, and And I just see them like walking to the bus and getting their groceries and, you know, carrying on like life is as we know it.
Well, hopefully, like I said, I'm not much for assimilation, but I am for commonality. So hopefully what that does is you have the reaction that hopefully you did, which is, I see this person is having a great time. They're living in their joy.
So I agree with that. And I'd like to take that even a step further. So here's where I'm going to get the negative comments on Facebook. It's not meant to be negative, but
Oh my God.
I would love that to be the case all the way around, because I've been at parties where I'm supposed to call someone they, and then I didn't call them they because I was staring at them and I naturally just said he or she or whatever. And then I got reprimanded and I was like, okay, I know why you're reprimanding me, because you're wanting things to change, but it'd be so great if we could just like not, like all of us, like no one cares what my gender is, or you're like, I would love to like not care about gender.
Oh my God, you sound like my wife.
Oh really?
This is the exact same thing my wife said to me.
I just want it to be, it's so much work.
That's so,
I just want it to be.
she said the same thing. She keeps saying, can't we think of another word like shim? Or, yeah, that's interesting.
It's so confusing and
I
hard.
actually don't have a problem with it, but I am starting, because of my wife, I am starting to understand that the idea of constantly having to talk about gender is not only tiresome, but it tends to get confusing. Can't we come to some kind of middle ground? So I am.
And then move on, because we do have like world wars and this president thing,
true.
and we've got like, you know, and that's not to say it's not an important subject, but it's just life. Like we all go to the bathroom. Do we need to talk about how we go to the bathroom? We do, and
Boy,
it's
I'm
over.
with you.
Like, you know what I mean? Like these are parts of life.
I'm so tired of talking about the bathroom.
I'm
I'm so tired of...
So enough, people. Okay, I've got some more questions for you.
Yeah.
Now this one,
Yes.
you talked about in your show quite a bit, and
Yeah.
I mean, this show could go on forever with Alexandra because there's so much to talk to her about. But you did have a life with drugs and prostitution, and we talk so much about championing your authentic place in life. So you transitioned and made your peace with that and your life around it. But equally, if not more hard, I would think it would be to pull yourself out of the depths and despair. And I know that many people out there are feeling the depths of despair. Anywhere from the job you hate that is like lifting heavy furniture every day, or maybe the job you love, but the marriage that isn't right. Life is hard. Life is tricky. Life is full of a bag of tricks. So if you have any words that you could share with other people about what it took to pull yourself out of that.
Boy, that's a great, great question. I think I was able to come to a point in my life where I just felt like I wasn't able to look at myself with any kind of respect. And I started to try, to the best of my ability, to live outside of my own selfishness. I wanted to do something for people besides me. A lot of what we do is out of desperation and necessity, because those things that I did were necessary at the time in order for me to survive. But I don't think they would have been had I been instilled a sense of self and being at a very young age. That this new trans generation is. You're beautiful, you're kind, you're compassionate, your gender is, we love it, we embrace it, and we honor it. Those words were never said to me.
So you're talking about millennials now and how they approach sexuality and gender.
And for me, because that wasn't in me from the beginning, I had to find that. I had to search for that.
Yeah.
And once I did, and once I found it, I never let go. I held on as quickly and tightly as I possibly could.
Okay, so this is the point that I'm so glad you said that, because I asked that question but had no idea what you were going to say. But I think this is another point that I'd love to get through in this conversation, and that is, we keep talking about relationships that other people are having, or the sex that other people are having, or the kind of sex that other people are having. The relationship we really need to focus on is the relationship with ourselves. And that's the relationship because you're talking about the relationship you had with yourself, and you were disconnected from yourself, and you found yourself in a boatload of trouble. As soon as you connected to yourself, I'm making it sound simple, it's clearly not, but you were able to make that connection, you pulled yourself out, or found a reason to pull yourself out.
Because I think once you do that, our job, our responsibility on the planet, in order to keep humanity going, we live on a planet that sits in the middle of nothing, in the middle of stardust that we're being hurled around.
It's pretty flippin' amazing.
It's unbelievable when you think about the fact of not only where we came from, but where we're going. Nobody knows, nobody's in charge, with the exception, I believe, of the divine. We hang on an axis, spin on an axis of history and hope. Our job is to keep humanity moving. The only way that we can do that, in my opinion, is if we treat each other well, hold each other dear, and honor each other with consistency and compassion. So we have to get outside of our own selves and live in service.
Oh, that's wonderful. To live in service, yes, and again, it's that relationship you have with yourself. Once that relationship is fine, you can actually start helping other people.
That's exactly right.
And you can't. It's like the baby in the mask on the plane. You can't start helping other people until you take care of yourself first. And
That's
so,
right.
if you could just take care of yourself first, we'd start doing a lot of the other healing that is so necessary. And as we see every day, it's becoming more and more necessary.
We got to get right with us before we can get right with others.
Yes, and in the long haul, I sort of say, in a dire way, I don't think we're going to last if we don't.
I agree.
I think we're really getting in our own way. There's a limit to just how much stupidity can be out there before we start to just demolish what we have.
I agree.
From the planet to ourselves, to our family structure, to our health. Look at what we're eating. I mean, this conversation is a large one. So, get on it, people. Like, we don't have
And look what I'm eating.
Okay,
Tofu.
a couple more questions.
No. This is really good.
That's super good.
Can I say that to you?
I'm sorry I didn't cook it myself.
I love your dog, and I love your tofu. Two things that I would have hated before I walked in this house.
It's true, because on her website she says she's not a fan of big dogs,
No,
but
like
you
big
guys know I
dogs.
have
And that
big
is the big.
dogs,
That dog's like a house.
I know,
it's like a small condo.
He's so wonderful.
It's the largest dog I've ever seen in my life.
He's so beautiful. Okay, so it's kind of cool. It's very cool that we see millennials acting much differently than you ever had in the 70s towards gender fluidity, the whole thing. Talk to me a little bit about perseverance, because to make it through the 70s, to get to where we could have the education, which still needs to progress, but we've come so far with the education that millennials now can sort of say things like, oh, they, rather than he or she, or it's fluid, or it's genderqueer, or that people are just throwing around that, like, basically anything's possible, and that's fine. What did it take to get here?
Well, I think that's all of us. You know,
group effort.
Absolutely. I've been teaching. I'm a teacher at a professor of theater arts at USC here in California, and I've been teaching now for 30 plus years. And when I was a young teacher, in my early 30s, when I would walk in a room, the first issue was my transgenderism. We were talking about this earlier.
Yes.
And now, with this new generation, they couldn't care less. They couldn't care. They're much more interested in the show, in the TV show, than they are about anything else. It just doesn't matter to them.
It's wonderful. So that to me says huge progress.
Oh my God, this generation is the most imaginative, the kindest, the most compassionate, the quickest, the most inventive. Look what they've invented. Look what we're doing.
Yes,
they invented
yes,
this.
yes.
We didn't invent
Thank
this.
you.
Yeah, thanks guys. You're super smart. And so because they do that, they receive information in a very particular way.
So much faster.
So much faster.
And they're so much more adaptable.
Oh my God.
They're really quick to change, and we've been very slow to change.
It's
and
hard
they're
for
very
us.
Quick to
It's
adapt.
hard for us.
Yes.
They did not put I keep going back to him, but they did not put Donald Trump in the presidency. They did not do that. We did. I'm just saying, pointing the finger. It's us.
Yeah, dumb
We
as
did it.
rocks. Okay, so we don't, just things have got to change, people.
Oh.
From my perspective, you can shoot me down on that one too, but things have got to change. Well, you brought up the TV show, so what the heck, people? Let's talk transparent for just a minute. Has that changed your life? Or
Yes.
Has that? Okay, how? How has transparent changed your life?
Oh, my God.
And is Jeffrey Tambor as great as he seems?
Jeffrey Tambor
And
is
Jill Soloway.
Jill Soloway. Well, Jill and I met
Chicago.
Chicago?
gal. Mm-hmm.
in Chicago when she was at the Annoyance Theater.
Oh, the annoyance.
You know what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
I sure do.
And I was at a theater called the Torso Theater.
No,
which
that
is
one
down
I
on-
don't know.
Well, because 5 people went.
Okay.
But it was on Diversey and Clark.
Right
Where the-
there.
above a pizza shop.
In the hood.
She was doing a show called Co-Ed Prison Sluts.
Now this show I remember. I saw co-ed prison sluts, so I must have been at the Torso. Because I saw co-ed prison
No,
sluts.
that was at The Annoyance.
Oh, okay.
Because Jill was doing that one. And
Okay.
I was doing a show called Cannibal Cheerleaders on Crack.
I wanted to see that.
That was at Torso Theater. That was a big hit, I gotta say.
It was a huge hit. It
Big
was.
hit. So we were both in these shows that ran for years and years and years. And one day, I got a call.
Oh
Voicemail.
my God.
I do that all the time.
Did you guys realize what happened? I got a call during Facebook Live and
I fixed it.
we're we're still here.
I know.
Oh my God. So did you catch what happened? We're back at the Annoyance Theater.
Yeah.
And Jill Soloway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jill Soloway's doing Co-Ed Prison Sluts, and I'm doing Cannibal Cheerleaders on Crack.
You see
And I
the
get a call.
affinity there.
Yeah.
You see why they like each
Exactly. And I get a call, and Susan Messing, who's a great teacher and a wonderful actress.
So I love Susan Messing. I've interviewed her a bunch of times.
Have you?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'll send you the clips.
Please?
Oh, Susan. In fact, I should
She's-
have invited her to this.
Well, she's
thing.
really the reason that Jill and I know each other, because
Oh, I
she
love
left
her.
the show for about a week, and Mick Napier, who runs
The Annoyance.
called me and said, Alex, can you step into Co-Ed Prison Sluts? And I said, I can't. I'm in Cannibal Cheerleaders. And he goes, I know that. However, Cannibal Cheerleaders starts at 11. And Co-Ed Prison Sluts starts at 9. And so if you do this, we'll put you in a cab, and you can run across town and make it to your show. So that's what I did for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And that's how Jill and I met. And then Jill and Faith Soloway, who's Jill's sister, their parent began to transition.
Right.
And out of the blue, years later, I got this message on the Facebook from Faith that said, our parent is transitioning, and we need help. We don't know what to do. Can you help us? So we talked back and forth. And then about 6 months later, she wrote me again, and she said, so we decided to make a TV show
I love it.
out of my parent who's transitioning. And there's a role in it. What we'd like you to audition for. It's the role of the best friend. Will you come and audition for it? It's being done at Amazon. And at the time, I was like, you mean the place that sells books? Like, I was like, who's going to see that? But I thought, what the heck? Yeah, it's the Soloway sisters. And then we went down, I auditioned, I got it. And I cannot believe what has happened.
It
I
has
cannot believe
impacted
it.
the world, I think, so much on this particular conversation. I just so many dialogues
It's bizarre.
around the world would not be possible if that television show weren't there.
It's bizarre, and we've been to the Golden Globes, we've been to the
Emmys.
Emmys, we've been to, like,
And
3
winning.
times
Yes,
we've been
right.
to the
Yes.
frickin' what is happening?
Yes.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Because I keep going back to,
Well, the writing's good, the acting's good. You know, even subject matter aside, you've
Thank
got
goodness.
all the great bones.
Thank
And
goodness.
Amazon, thanks Amazon.
And Amazon.
Great,
Who knew from
promotion
selling
and
books.
distribution, and yeah.
I keep going back to when I was diagnosed with AIDS. And this was at a time when there was no medication except ACT. And there was really nothing anybody could do. You went home and you died. So every time something like this happens, I sit in a grateful place that bathes me in reminder. I remember and I say to myself, Alex, if this ends tomorrow, that's not the gift. Stay present in the acceptance of your gratefulness.
It's funny, you're leading me to my next question.
All right? We should
I
get
was-
rid of this too. Wait, watch.
Do we know how?
Yeah, watch. Pink. How fabulous am I? How proud of you. Aren't you proud of me?
That is so
See?
much better than being transgender.
I'm
Like,
right.
the fact that you know what to do on Facebook is so much better.
Because I love the live thing. I actually do the
It is
live
a
thing
live
a
thing,
lot.
super fun.
And so when I've learned how when things pop up, you just go, "Kinshpow," and it goes,
Kinshpow. Exactly what I do. Ka-chow. Okay.
I'm going to eat more tofu.
I do eat it. So every Wednesday I do, but I didn't do it this Wednesday because I knew that I'd be talking to Alex. But every Wednesday I do something really easy, simple, Facebook Live from my kitchen and make my favorite vegan recipe. And I think, well, what the heck? I'm 50, and if there's any benefit to getting old, because there's not a lot of benefits, but there are some. And one of the benefits is you kind of learned a lot by now. Or sometimes you forget what you learned, you have to relearn it because you're a little bit dopey like me. But you know, you've been through the ropes. And so every Wednesday I do food for thought, life lessons from my kitchen. I make my favorite vegan on Facebook Live. I make my favorite vegan recipe because everybody thinks like vegan, I could never do it. Oh my God, all this closed down like stuff. So I make some great, fabulous vegan food, and then I share my life lesson of the week, like whatever life has thrown me to remind me of a life lesson that I've learned over the years. So I was wondering if there's any life lesson you have that you always comes up and one of your very favorites that you've tried and true for you.
I think it's a passage from Marianne Williamson, who's a great writer. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most surrounds us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be gorgeous, fabulous, brilliant, gifted? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. And playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking, so other people won't feel insecure around you. I love that. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us all.
Don't waste your gifts, people. Don't waste your gifts. And you all have them. Okay, 2 quick questions, and then we're going to skedaddle and eat more food.
Skedaddle. That is the greatest word.
Am I also dating myself?
That's amazing. I've never heard anyone actually.
You have?
No. Oh. That was beautiful. How do you spell skedaddle? 2 E's? S-K-E-E?
Double D.
Skedaddle? Double D?
S-C-A.
S-C-A? What? That's ska. Oh, ska-daddle. Ska-daddle? I was over ski-daddle. I don't know.
Somebody in the universe there, tell us. Yeah, you guys research it up.
Skedaddle.
So 2 quick questions before we let you go, my dear. So fun to have her in my
darling. So yummy.
Favorite snacks? You're on set. You're on Transparent. What do you go to? What's your favorite snack? And it can be junk food or it can be good for you.
Oh, it's all I eat is junk food.
Woohoo!
This is the first healthy thing I've had since I was 10. My wife's going to kill me. My go-to is tea. This is going to kill you.
Black tea?
Black tea.
Okay.
With 17 sugars.
Oh, good. That sounds horrible.
It's fantastic.
Why would you do that?
Try it.
Okay. White sugar, brown
it's
sugar.
Why white sugar.
Okay.
It's why I have 3 teeth left, but I'm saying I feel great.
Just shoot it into your veins.
That's
why
what I intend to do soon.
It?
I'm going to do that.
My very last question for you. So you are in something called the Celebrity Dinner Party. If you could throw a dinner party, who would you have? Who do you want to sit down with?
Alive or dead?
Either is good.
Oh.
Dreamy.
Well, the first one that came to my head was Liza.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
I want to talk to Liza.
I can see that.
I just want to sit and talk to her for a little while. See how she's doing.
Yes. For me, she was a troubled soul. And so I would like to be able to give some warmth and kindness to her.
Yeah.
She struck me as...
I want to sit her down and fix her something really good to eat. And then I want to sit her down and talk about how miraculous she is as an entertainer and how much she changed my life.
Oh, let her know how much she impacted you.
Yes.
Were you see, Liza, I think is a little bit before my time.
Is that right?
Well, I'm 50. I don't know. I knew of her as a kid, but I didn't see her perform or no.
Oh, that's shocking to me.
Oh.
I'm going to send you some videos.
Oh, okay.
You'll lose your mind.
Oh, really?
Oh!
Everybody says this. Okay.
When she was in her heyday.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, remember who she came from.
Yes, right, of course. Yeah, Judy Garland. Yeah.
Please. So you can't, I mean, how do you...
An Italian director father, right?
Vincent Minnelli.
Vincent Minnelli. Right, Minnelli, of course, yes.
Super sexy and super great. Yeah, I need to send you some stuff.
Okay, send me some stuff. I will send you some vegan recipes.
See?
I want
Everybody wins.
What we're doing here today.
So good.
I want to thank everybody for joining us on Facebook Live. This is going to post again, so be sure to share it and all that kind of stuff. If you sent us questions and comments, we love you, and we're going to get back to you right when we finish our tofu. And this is going to go up. So it'll go to my e-blast list and all the social media stuff. It'll also go to YouTube. So for YouTube people who are watching this whenever this goes up, be sure to subscribe and stick with me and all that stuff. And I love you, everybody. Thank you for being here with me. And don't forget to be vegan.
Don't forget to be
That's
vegan.
how I like to end my things. Don't forget to be vegan.
No.
And Alex, thank you for being with me.
You're welcome.
Thank
you
you for being
Elizabeth.
here.
Thank
This
you.
is super
This
fun.
has been lovely.
Super fun.
Really
good for us. Hope we all learned stuff today, people. Bye, pups. Peeps. Oh, gosh.
Popes and peeps.
Popes and yes. Help.
I hope this